Are we bringing Kevin Stefanski back next year as the head coach?
I think he's going to get fired. I think he is going to get fired.
I think you should go ahead and fire him.
Yeah.
Because he feels like he's coaching for his job. And it may seem like a defeatist attitude, but sometimes what's best long-term for the organization might not be best short-term for the people currently running the organization.
Listen, you're going to be in games where you got to go 85 or 90 or whatever it is to go win it. And we'll look at ways that we can be better as an offense there.
He was doing it. That was a classic Stefanski game. And this is why I think his brain is broke right now from an offensive standpoint. He thinks that's the best way to win a game. And I just disagree. I think when you're going up against Josh Allen and Cook and all these other guys, I just don't think that's the best way to win a game.
And the worst thing the Browns can do is win these last two games and end up picking 8th or 9th instead of potentially having the 1st through the 3rd overall pick.
I think he was trying so hard to make sure that it wasn't a blowout again, like last week, that this is what he came up with. And so from that perspective, they executed it, but it's not a way to do anything long term.
The Cleveland Browns are a franchise stuck in quicksand. Every move they make seems to pull them deeper into the abyss of NFL mediocrity. And now, one of the league's most respected voices, former NFL quarterback and analyst Shaun King, has had enough. In a blistering conversation that's sending shockwaves through Cleveland, King didn't just criticize Kevin Stefanski, he systematically dismantled the entire philosophical approach that's keeping the Browns in perpetual dysfunction. This isn't your typical hot take. This is a surgical breakdown of organizational failure, coaching malpractice, and what happens when short-term self-preservation collides with long-term franchise building. And at the center of it all, Shedeur Sanders, a fifth-round quarterback who might be getting his talent wasted in real time by a coach fighting for his job.
What's best long-term for the organization might not be best short-term for the people currently running the organization.
Let's start with the nuclear bomb Shaun King dropped. When asked about Kevin Stefanski's future, King didn't hesitate, didn't waffle, didn't give the typical, well, it's complicated analyst answer. He went straight for the throat.
Are we bringing Kevin Stefanski back next year as the head coach?
I think he's going to get fired. I think he is going to get fired.
I think you should go ahead and fire him.
Yeah.
Because he feels like he's coaching for his job.
There it is, the fundamental problem with the Cleveland Browns in one sentence. Stefanski is coaching scared. He's coaching for survival. And when coaches do that, they make decisions that help them keep their jobs, not decisions that help their teams win championships. King explained the toxic cycle perfectly. When a coach feels the heat, when he knows ownership is watching every move, he doesn't take the risks necessary to build something special. He plays it safe. He runs the ball on 3rd and long. He takes the checkdowns. He avoids the deep shots that could turn into interceptions. He coaches not to lose rather than coaching to win. And in doing so, he's destroying exactly what the Browns need most, a top draft pick that could change the trajectory of this franchise. The logic is brutal but undeniable. The Browns currently sit with the 3rd pick in the draft. If they lose out, they're guaranteed a top 2 selection. That's franchise-altering capital. That's the kind of pick you can either use on an elite prospect or trade for a king's ransom of future assets. But Stefanski? He's trying to win meaningless December games to save his job. And in doing so, he's potentially costing the Browns the very ammunition they need to escape this nightmare.
And the worst thing the Browns can do is win these last two games and end up picking 8th or 9th instead of potentially having the 1st through the 3rd overall pick. And that's regardless.
Now let's talk about what's happening on the field, because the film doesn't lie, and neither does the frustration pouring out of Cleveland media. Watch the Bills game. Watch how Stefanski called that game. Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback who built his entire college reputation on taking shots downfield, on making big plays, on playing with swagger, was reduced to a checkdown machine. Short passes, safe throws, zero risk. Nick Wilson from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show captured it perfectly when discussing Stefanski's approach.
He was doing it. That was a classic Stefanski game. And this is why I think his brain is broke right now from an offensive standpoint. He thinks that's the best way to win a game. And I just disagree. I think when you're going up against Josh Allen and Cook and all these other guys, I just don't think that's the best way to win a game. But
brain broke. That's the perfect description. Stefanski has become so risk-averse, so committed to his outdated offensive philosophy that he's neutering the one thing that gives this team any hope, a young quarterback with legitimate NFL talent. Think about this for a second. Shedeur Sanders threw for just over 200 yards against Buffalo. He completed safe passes, moved the chains when the defense allowed it, and generally executed exactly what Stefanski asked him to do. The problem? That's not winning football in 2024. That's not how you beat teams with Josh Allen and dynamic offensive weapons. Wilson nailed this point. Stefanski was so terrified of getting blown out again like the Bears disaster the week before that he crafted a game plan specifically designed to keep it close. Not to win, to keep it close, to make sure the score looked respectable so he could point to competitiveness when defending his job. That's coaching malpractice. That's putting your career ahead of your players' development and your team's future. Here's where this gets complicated and where King's analysis becomes absolutely essential for understanding the Browns' future. Shedeur Sanders is in an impossible position. He's a fifth-round pick, thrust into action on one of the NFL's worst offensive lines with one of the NFL's worst receiving corps behind a coach who's coaching scared. And yet, somehow, he's supposed to prove he's a franchise quarterback. King laid out the quarterback situation with brutal honesty.
Do we currently have a better option at quarterback? A guaranteed better option at quarterback for 2026 than Shedeur Sanders? I've got to ask myself that question. It's not about do I think he's the franchise quarterback. It's not about anything other than right now, do we have a better option? I would say the answer is no.
This is the reality Browns fans need to accept. The draft class coming up doesn't have a can't-miss quarterback. Shedeur Mendoza might go number 1, but King isn't convinced he's an elite prospect. Dante Moore might not even declare. The Browns are stuck in quarterback purgatory, and Shedeur, for all his limitations, represents the best path forward. But here's the gut punch. Even if Shedeur is the answer, Stefanski's offense is actively preventing him from showing it. Wilson broke down the paradox perfectly. On one hand, Shedeur needed to prove he could operate within structure, take the checkdowns, be a game manager type when needed. That's what NFL coaches want to see. That's what silences the critics who say he's just a gunslinger who can't run a real offense. Mission accomplished on Sunday. Shedeur showed he could do exactly that. He executed Stefanski's boring, risk-averse game plan to perfection. But at what cost? The Browns lost. The offense sputtered. And most importantly, Shedeur didn't get to showcase the traits that make him special. The arm talent, the downfield accuracy, the ability to make plays under pressure. That's not developing a quarterback. That's using him as a prop in your own job security theater. Shaun King didn't just criticize Stefanski. He diagnosed the systemic problem that separates winning organizations from perpetual losers.
During this conversation, there are going to be some things that I'm going to point out that I think are microcosm that impacts a lot of organizations, and it separates the organizations that win on a consistent basis from the organizations that seem to be in this perpetual loop of failure.
The Browns are trapped in this loop. They fire coaches every 3 years, they draft quarterbacks who don't work out, they make desperate trades for aging veterans, they panic, they overreact, they chase short-term fixes that create long-term disasters. And Stefanski, despite being Coach of the Year twice, has become part of that cycle. He's no longer building towards something, he's just trying to survive another week, another game, another evaluation period. King's solution? Tear it down. Accept the rebuild. Stop trying to win meaningless games that only hurt your draft position. Fire Stefanski now. Not because he's a terrible coach, but because his presence is preventing the organization from making the hard, necessary decisions that lead to sustained success. The Steelers were mentioned as a counterexample. 3 coaches since 1969. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in 19 years. How is that possible? Because the Steelers operate with organizational stability, long-term thinking, and a commitment to building something sustainable. The Browns, they're the opposite. They're reactive, they're desperate, And coaches like Stefanski, facing potential termination, make decisions based on fear rather than vision. Let's address the elephant in the room: tanking, losing on purpose, draft positioning, whatever you want to call it. Some fans hate this conversation. They want to win every game no matter what. They think rooting for losses makes you a bad fan. But King destroyed that argument with cold, hard logic.
And the worst thing the Browns can do is win these last 2 games and end up picking 8th or 9th instead of potentially having the 1st through the 3rd overall pick. And that's regardless of what they decide to do with that pick. There's just so much value attached to picking that high.
Value, that's the key word. A top 3 pick isn't just about drafting a player. It's about having options. It's about leverage. It's about either landing an elite prospect or trading for a king's ransom of future assets. Win 2 meaningless December games? Congratulations, you just dropped to 8th or 9th pick. You just lost your shot at a franchise-altering prospect or trade package. You just extended your rebuild by another year or 2. Was it worth it? So Kevin Stefanski could feel better about himself? The Browns are sitting on potential gold. They control their destiny for a top 2 pick. All they have to do is lose games they were probably going to lose anyway against playoff-caliber competition. But Stefanski won't do it. He can't do it. His job depends on showing competitiveness and progress. So he'll win a couple of meaningless games, drop in the draft, and get fired anyway, leaving the next coach with worse assets and fewer options. That's the cycle. That's the trap. That's why the Browns stay broken. King laid out the solution with clarity. Fire Stefanski now. Not after the season, now. Remove the temptation to win meaningless games. Secure the highest possible draft pick. Then make smart decisions with that capital. Draft the best player available, whether that's an offensive lineman, a receiver, or even, yes, a quarterback if Mendoza or Moore is truly special. But don't reach. Don't draft based on need. Draft based on talent. Build through free agency. King emphasized this repeatedly. You can find quality receivers, offensive linemen, even running backs in free agency. You don't need to waste top picks on positions where veteran talent is available. But elite quarterbacks, elite edge rushers, elite offensive tackles, those guys come from the top of the draft. Those are the picks you can't waste. And as for Shedeur, give him a real offensive coordinator. Give him a coach who isn't fighting for his job. Give him an offensive line that doesn't get him killed. Then evaluate what you actually have. Because right now, nobody knows. Shedeur is operating in the worst possible conditions, under the worst possible incentives, in a situation designed to fail. The Cleveland Browns stand at a crossroads that will define the next 5 years of this franchise. Path 1, keep Stefanski, win a couple of meaningless games, drop in the draft, and hope things magically get better next year. Repeat the cycle. Path 2, fire Stefanski, embrace the tank, secure a top 2 pick, hire a coach who isn't coaching scared, build properly. Shaun King is screaming for Path 2. Cleveland media is screaming for Path 2. Anyone with eyes and a functioning brain is screaming for Path 2.
Will the Haslams listen? History suggests they won't. History suggests they'll make the emotional decision, the short-sighted decision, the decision that leads to more mediocrity. But maybe, just maybe, this time will be different. Maybe they'll finally understand that losing now means winning later. Maybe they'll finally break the cycle. Because if they don't, we'll be having this exact same conversation in December 2025. Different coach, different quarterback, same losing. And Shedeur Sanders, talented, promising, doomed, will become just another casualty of Cleveland's endless dysfunction. The clock is ticking, the decision is binary, and Shaun King has made his position crystal clear. Fire Stefanski, secure the pick, and stop the madness. Everything else is just noise.